What is up, everybody? It is victory week, baby. Jets W. It was a roller coaster of emotions. This is the Jet Up podcast, and we're going to break it all down between the excitement when we were competing in the game, to the depression when the Browns scored a couple late touchdowns, to the pandemonium when we finally scored, recovered the onside kick, and then got the game-winning touchdown. We're going to bring you all of that right now. I got my co-host here, Ryan, and we're going to jump right in and just talk about how good we feel after that W. How you feeling, Ryan?
I feel amazing. I haven't felt this good about a Jets win since they beat New England in 2010 in the divisional. And this is a regular season game. What a win. What a win. We'll talk about it, but today was a great day.
Yeah, I haven't had this feeling in a long time. I mean, it's like I said, I feel like it was the most exciting win in, like you said, over a decade for this franchise. We haven't won a game in September since Sam Darnold's first game on the New York Jets.
So that's crazy.
So it's been a while, but we did it against all odds. Craziest ending. Even people from other teams are just like extremely impressed with how the Jets fought to the end. So we're going to break it down. And Ryan, did you know that it has been 20 years, that's 2,229 games, since any team has overcome a 2-touchdown deficit with under 2 minutes to go in a regular season game? 20 years.
20. I thought it was, I didn't even know that. That's insane.
Yeah.
That made no sense. It just made no sense. We had, I think, a 0.1 chance, 1.1% chance of winning, or something like that. Something crazy, 0.1%. Just insane. Like, the Browns literally gifted that to us, and we made plays when we needed to.
Yeah, it was like a combination of the Browns making some dumb mistakes, but then the Jets obviously making plays. So it wasn't like the Browns, fumbled it and we just ran it in for the touchdown. We actually
capitalized.
We had to go and make those plays, but they did leave the door just a little bit open. For me, it worked out great. I had Nick Chubb in fantasy, so he scored that touchdown when he should have probably slid. So I got those points, and then the Jets, because of that, went on to have enough time to win the game. So best case scenario. But so obviously we'll cover some of the ups and downs. It was, a really wild roller coaster of a game. You yourself were kind of having a mental breakdown in the last few minutes. Why don't you just break that down for me before we get into like the details of the game?
I just was so upset because they actually played pretty well on the offensive side of the ball for the first time. So I was like, of course, we bring offense all game, and they look pretty decent, and then the defense doesn't show up. And I'm not going to say anything negative about the game, but the defense really didn't show up yesterday until the end. But I was just so upset because, like, I looked at our schedule, and I said this with like 2 minutes to go. I said, look at this. We're staring 0-7 in the face. And I just couldn't. I just, didn't want to invest more energy and time into the Jets, knowing that the season could be over by October 1st. So the fact, like, even when we got the onside kick, I was like, I went from this season's over to I can't handle this. This is too stressful. And I miss having that feeling of just being excited and stressed, that the fact that you could win a game in September where it actually matters. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I mean, we watched it together, but I couldn't even explain to you my emotions. I was just in shock, and that's why we love football, right? That's why we love being a fan, for those moments. And we don't get those moments often, but when we do, they're fun. They're, memories. And I don't think I'll ever, and it's a regular season game, but I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. Joe Flacco is forever my favorite quarterback of all time after that.
After a week of just trashing Joe Flacco.
No, that was never.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, it was a wild time. I'm sure most people had a pretty wild experience yesterday in their living rooms or at the game. We were together for that game with our other brother Robert, and our dad, and we were just flipping out. It went from trying to console you for a while they were looking like they were going to lose, and you were like, this is the only winnable game out of the first few.
Yep.
And I was like, hey man, it's all right, we competed, like that's all we wanted.
I didn't want to hear any of that.
Yeah, no, you were like, this is ridiculous. This was the chance we had to win. Jacoby Brissett's not that good. I can't believe we're gonna lose this game.
So.
And ultimately that got flipped very soon after that. And I just saw you just were so confused, and it was so fun to watch. As Robert and I our other brother were
so
just
calm.
We were very calm. We were just kind of like, you know what? Last week we just stunk, and this week we're in this game.
I was happy they competed.
And
I just, it's how I understand that's like the goal this year is to compete and just be in football games in the fourth quarter. And I said that many times.
But it's different.
When you're in the moment, I'm like, just when is this team going to step up and win a game that you're not supposed to win? And I understand the fact that it's like we don't, we're young, but to me, in the same breath, like you're in your year 3 of a rebuild with a GM that's supposed to turn this thing around, and if you can't like cap off a win against a team that doesn't have the starting quarterback, like that's what was frustrating to me, because like next week, who knows? Again, the schedule's tough. It's like you're in a winnable game. Like I want them to step up and win it. And obviously that is exactly what happened, was at the moment, I was like, there's no way. So I was so frustrated. But I think I'm just so used to that, I'm just so used to them just losing it in the last, honestly, not even competing, but even if they do compete, I just feel like it's always a loss. So the fact that they were actually able to win, hopefully is where we turn the corner. Because I want Rob Saleh to be good, like I really do. Like I think he's a likable guy. Like I think the players love him, and like I'm tired of going through this coaching search and this GM search. Like I want this to work, and we're critical of them, but in the same sentence, like we want them to be good, like even as much as we didn't love the previous head coach Adam Gase, we still wanted him to be good, like we want all these guys to pan out and change, but turn the team around. But we need to see some progress, and that's why I was like, Saleh, I love what you're about. I love how you talk to your team. I love it. But you gotta like put some wins together, man. Like this is pro football. So that's what was really on my mind, because he's a fun guy to root for. He really is. And this team is fun to root for because of the young talent. But now we got to put it together.
So, no, I totally hear you. I think for me, like I'm saying that I was calm and happy that we were competing, but at the same time, at the end of last week's podcast, I said, it's great to hear all this awesome philosophy and everything, but go win a damn football game. And, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. So I think, competing is fun, and being in that game was fun, but for me, it was kind of just like, oh, of course we're going to lose this one too. But then we actually turned it around. And once we had a shot, once we got the onside kick, I was like, all right, let's go win this football game. Like, I don't want to just compete.
But exactly. It's like, that's what we're kind of saying, like compete and have a chance to win in the fourth quarter. So once we had a chance and, we go 3 and out on our own 10 and we had to punt, I was like you got to. I know it's Joe Flacco. We got the banged up offensive line, but like, I just would wanted that to be the drive, right? And then obviously everything happened and it worked out. But I don't know. It was just an amazing win. Like there's literally I don't want to even talk negative. I think like we don't get a lot of these, so we got to take what we got and kind of move forward and use this momentum to. And you're going to talk about it soon, but maybe, upset the Bengals next week, who don't look all that, unbeatable.
Yeah, no, totally. It just feels different when you win. You feel you feel like you're just in a different world, like where it's not just,
It's fun.
going and whatever. When are we going to get our first win? What's our draft position?
I'm just so tired of that.
So tired of that. So, to get the win, it just feels like we're in this thing. We can win this league. We don't just have to wait for these games against Jacksonville. We can
really,
actually beat teams that have a real shot. So
you really see the young talent, like, and that's the biggest difference for me. Like in previous regimes, like we said, it takes time, but none of the young players ever really showed anything. Like our guys now, like you could tell, like Garrett Wilson is a dude, like he's legit. Like we have offensive playmakers all over the field, which is awesome. Defensively, you could tell our secondary, corners wise, is legit. Like they're playing against some of the best receivers in the league, and they're holding their own. And that's what's exciting is like, oh wow, like these draft picks and these free agency signings are actually looking like they're legit NFL players. Where in the past we were scrambling, guys off the top of my head, like I don't even know. Like Terrell Pryor was playing wide receiver for us. He was fine, but he was our wide receiver one.
Yeah.
Like now we have 3 legitimate wide receivers with some depth there. So it's actually fun to see. Like, all right, you're saying all the right things in terms of what you want to do to turn it around, but now you're actually putting players out there that can make impacts on a game.
Absolutely. It's we're gonna talk about some of those players in a second here. Because on our last show, we begged the Jets coaching staff to use their new talent. I think there was a lot of people that were just upset that Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall were not in the game in the first half much last week.
Yep.
But after you heard Saleh talk, after that game, you kind of got the sense that they just realized that was not the right approach and that was not going to be the approach going forward. And obviously they listened because Garrett Wilson was featured all over the field.
That's what was so frustrating, right? Like for me, I was like, I understand he's a rookie and you want to kind of ease him in, but he's also your best wide receiver. As soon as he got drafted on that night, he becomes your best playmaker. And I'm just so pumped like that he showed what he showed yesterday because like I knew it all along. And like I knew a lot of people knew it all along. But he was my favorite wide receiver coming out of college. And for him to just jump in and just go off like that was just so encouraging. Like we I don't know if we have had a player like that. I know we talk about Brandon Marshall and those guys, but a young guy that we've drafted, like homegrown talent as a wide receiver, like, Santonio Holmes was a good signing. We've had guys here and there, but like he could be a legitimate number 1 wide receiver that we drafted, which is, I can't tell you the last time that we've had that. I don't think ever.
Keyshawn Johnson, maybe,
in our lifetime.
20 years ago when we were little.
It's so it's like getting a guy like that is exciting. Getting a guy like now, I think, in my opinion, Elijah Moore is going to get open a little bit more. It almost opens the offense a little bit more when you got some guys like that. Like I love Corey Davis. He's wide receiver 3. I think Breece Hall, in terms of what he got as a workload, he was only on the field for 17 plays. So I don't love that.
Yeah, he only had seven snaps. I mean 7 carries.
Yeah, and here's the thing about that, and I'm not as upset about that, even though I love Breece. Like I understand why the Jets trust Michael Carter a little bit more. Like Michael Carter is legit a very solid running back, and he gives us that like ball security. He runs hard. He's tough. He's not going to break it for 75 yards for touchdown, but he could help out obviously when Zach gets back. Like he's legit. I love him. I think he's smart. I think he runs hard. I think we're going to see, as we all know too, like guys get banged up, things like that. So having Breece is just going to be another nice piece, but I don't think that's something to worry about too much. I think this philosophy of this coaching staff loves to rotate guys, which is fine. But sometimes it's like, even on the last drive, and again, I don't want to talk about negatives, but it was like 2nd and 10 and like Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore on the bench on the 10-yard line. And I was like, what? Again, whatever. They came back in the next play. It all worked out. But I'm like, just leave your dudes on the field.
Right.
But again, let's keep this positive. I keep going back to that because I'm so used to the Jets messing up. But it's very exciting time to watch this team, especially if Zach Wilson becomes legit.
Absolutely. So
That's the real key.
yeah, it is, and we're really not sure when he'll be back. It seems like it's kind of cryptic at this point. I just have a feeling Salah doesn't really know, and he's trying to keep the media at bay. So looking at though what we did see, Garrett Wilson, 8 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. And one thing I said on Twitter today was the narrative this week could have very easily just been Garrett Wilson drops first down, leads to Browns, momentum swing, which leads to them winning the game. Instead, Garrett Wilson was like, no, I'm not done here. I'm going to make another play that turns this thing around. He got a chance, thankfully, to redeem himself and make that play. So it was really excited for him. I think he's legit. I put a poll up on Twitter yesterday, and I said, is Garrett Wilson, after what we saw yesterday, a true wide receiver one? And it was like 97% of votes are saying yes. So that's encouraging for me to see. Then, like you mentioned, Breece Hall, he didn't have a ton of action yesterday, but we just wanted to see him in there especially in the red zone. And he had a receiving touchdown on a wheel route. When he did get the ball, in terms of rushing, he averaged 7.1 yards per carry yesterday. So obviously he's a talented back, but I totally agree on the Michael Carter analysis. I think, he just looked excellent in the end there, made some really nice plays, caught the ball really well and got out of bounds multiple times. So I think he's very, very reliable. So obviously a lot more talent on this team now. It's awesome, man. It's just so fun.
Yeah,
Guys like Elijah Moore are going to get more open. It's the outcome of you finally having multiple weapons that a team has to truly respect. It's not just weapons that we have to convince ourselves are good enough on Sunday to compete.
Yeah, we got some talent on the offensive end in terms of draft picks. I feel like the whole offense was almost built to the draft, right? Yeah. Which is kind of what you want to see. That's the whole Joe Douglas type deal. But now he's kind of put again, Mitchell didn't play great, but he played well enough for the Jets to win at the right tackle position for.
Yeah, I mean, they only gave up. I mean, I was pretty afraid of that Browns pass rush going into this game. And
let's be honest.
Myles Garrett had 1 sack.
Yeah, let's be honest. So let's be honest. Like, once Javion Clowney got hurt, Mitchell played a little bit better, obviously. But again, he made that huge heads-up play to jive on the fumble.
Yep.
I hate, and I think Dan Orlovsky alluded to it. Like, I really hate, not even just the Jets, every team. I hate putting a tight end on a supreme pass rusher. And they were going one-on-one for a couple plays in the first drive. And then they finally started having Fant and Conklin kind of, double the edge rush, which was nice. Again, Mike LaFleur knows football. He's a smart guy. Sometimes you're like, how do you not go into a game like that and not knowing that you got to stop Myles Garrett? But obviously he adjusted and things started going their way. Flacco can throw, okay? Like, that's obvious. Like, Flacco can make plays. He just needs time. He's not going to extend the play. The offensive line has to play well if we're going to, I don't think Cincinnati's pass rush is like daunting. I think we're going to be able to get to our stuff, and we'll probably be able to run the ball pretty well. But Avera Tucker is just proving to be a stud. If you watch him, he's all over the place.
With a healthy O line right now, we'd be a lot more formidable. I think that's where it's always a question mark every week how we're going to do. We did see them have success doubling Myles Garrett, where you could easily see how it was working. But ultimately they held up enough to get Flacco to make plays. So, that was exciting to see. Like you said, Flacco redeemed himself after week 1, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, led a game-winning drive. Awesome. So really exciting. We also saw Greg the Leg drill a 57-yarder, hit every extra point. And then we saw some things that you talked about with me last week in coaching in terms of pre-snap motion, play action. And then, as you mentioned, Salah, man, he had a rough week in the media last week, and now he's a fan favorite once again. So
we love you, Rob. We love you.
Robbie Salah.
For now.
Yeah.
But we will always love you, Rob Salah. We wanted you when we hired you. We still got your back. This podcast has Rob Salah's back. We love
Absolutely. We're big Salah guys.
You told me one day that even if we go 0-17, you still love Rob Saleh. And I said, I love the guy. I love the guy. He's just such a cool guy, man. I just hope that we can put some wins together. So, we have no questions going forward. But
Yeah.
again, we really love to root for him. It seems like an awesome
And
person.
you know what? About a head coach that's so important is how are your guys playing down the stretch? That's showing that they want to win for you. And
they love him. We know that the players would love him.
Yeah.
And so we just got to put some wins in, man. And then hopefully end on a good note this year. And then next year we'll get there. But we got to get going at some point. But I'm excited. I really am. Like, this was the best. Oh, I couldn't stop talking about it today. I really couldn't. It was just a great win. And I can't wait for next week, man. I love football. I love it.
Yeah, so we got a big game, obviously, against Cincinnati next week. I'm going to break that down in our second segment here. But, Ryan, appreciate you joining to help recap this game against the Browns.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, can't wait to watch again with you next week and hopefully get this momentum continuing and get some more wins under our belt, man. So appreciate you joining, and we will hopefully see you on the show soon.
Awesome. Thanks. Good to be back. Let's go Jets.
Second segment here, we're going to dive into a week 3 preview. So we talked a lot of positives in that segment with Ryan. There's just a couple things that we want to mention that maybe need to get cleaned up as we go into this game against Cincinnati. The run defense, obviously, they were good against Baltimore, not very good against Cleveland. So gave up a lot of yards against Nick Chubb. He ended up having 5.1 yards per carry against us, 3 touchdowns, which just seems not real. So that was not good. Obviously, Kareem Hunt could have probably done more damage. I think we held him decently, to average numbers. But the screen game just always seems to kill us. We definitely still have to work on that. And then we have to turn pressures into sacks. Carl Lawson made a huge play against the Browns where, towards the end of the game when you need your playmakers to make huge plays, and he did it, getting a sack. But we only had 1 total sack on the day between him and a half sack from, I believe, Quinnen Williams. So have to turn more of those pressures into sacks. And then we have to increase those touches, I think, for Breece Hall. I think we saw, Garrett, what happened when you increase the targets for Garrett Wilson and give him more play time. I think it's time to let Breece Hall loose a little bit. Keep saying it, but he's been proven that he can do it. So I think we got to get him back out there. So as we go into this week now against the Bengals, Jets are 1-1, and the Bengals are 0-2. The Super Bowl appearing Bengals of last year, one of everybody's favorite teams to root for last year, are 0-2. So obviously they've had a rougher start than most people have expected. No one expected the Jets to be going into this game with a better record than the Bengals. Obviously, it's only 2 games into the season, and the Bengals can turn it around. I still think they're a very good team. I still think Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase is always dangerous. But obviously, there's some gelling issues that they're dealing with some of these new players on their team. They're just not really putting it together, but we'll talk about a little bit more about when they do put it together and how dangerous that can be. So can the Jets win this game? I think, we talked about there's not a ton of winnable games in these first 7. The Browns, we had said, was 1. I think the Bengals it's 50-50 for me. I think, initially people thought the Bengals would be 2-0 right now. They're 0-2, so they're a little bit vulnerable, but they're still a good football team. So I think we can win this game, but I don't think it's going to be easy. The Bengals are better than their record, but momentum's real. I mean, look at the Giants. They're 2-0 now. After their first win, they capitalized on it and won game 2. So that's not an accident. I think that momentum can carry over game to game, and players play harder when they believe they have a real chance to win. So watch any defense at the end of a game when they're either in the game from a score standpoint or not in the game. It's just like night and day how hard they play. It makes a difference whether they really believe they have a chance to win. And the Jets beating the Browns, I think, is giving them more confidence as they go into this game against the Bengals. that they actually can win football games in this league now and compete. So the first thing we're going to just jump into in this segment is our Twitter mailbag. We had a nice question here from, I hope I say this right, Bunyor Julius Millen, who's at JR Millen 17. He said, how well does the Jets defense line up with the Bengals offense and vice versa? So I mentioned there's some new players on the Bengals. Their O-line was revamped this offseason. They brought in a lot more talent, but unfortunately that O-line is struggling a lot. They likely need a lot of time to gel because they are a new unit. The Jets O-line has had this problem too. But I think the Jets D-line has an advantage this week against that Bengals O-line. We should see more pressures turning into sacks as we see guys like Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers, some of these guys getting into the backfield and capitalizing on an O-line that is still working out the kinks. I do think Burrow is very good. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. But if we can get to him quickly, we can disrupt that entire offense for them. Over the first two games for the Bengals, they've only scored 3 touchdowns. So they're having some struggles. Burrow's been sacked 13 times, which is a big reason they're not winning football games. That leads the NFL. So he's obviously feeling that pressure. When a quarterback feels that pressure, and I've played quarterback before in high school, when you feel that pressure, you start to doubt how much time you have, and then you start to throw the ball a little too early, or you panic a little bit sooner. That's a real thing that even good quarterbacks can start to feel. That's why some of these quarterbacks, these younger guys in the league, when they're on a team with a bad O-line early in their career, it can ruin their whole career because they start to just freak out a little too soon. They don't get a feel for the pocket. So I don't think that that's going to be a long-term issue for Burrow, but you can definitely see he's playing a little bit different when he doesn't have confidence in his O-line as much as he maybe thought he did going into this season with the improvements. And Bengals are, they are struggling in some ways, but they're still 16th in rushing and 15th in passing. So they're still right in the middle of the pack. They still can be dangerous. They have a player like Jamar Chase, who is a real threat that we have to make sure we are on top of. After the Browns game, the Jets passing defense dropped a little bit, but not too much. They're right in that middle ground as well, that 15-16 range. So they should be able to compete with this, but again, we have to make sure that we lock up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and some of these other guys that can do damage for the Bengals. The Jets run D, the ranking took a little bit of a hit against the Browns, so this is where we could run into some issues if we don't clean that up and play more similar to the Baltimore game. The Jets run D now ranks 21st in the league after ranking, I believe it was 3rd after the Baltimore game. So, Nick Chubb did a lot of damage to us last week, and we need to make sure we clean that up because Joe Mixon is a legit running back, and he can gash you for some big yards, and he's great at scoring touchdowns. So we have to just make sure that we key in on him and clean that up, rally to the ball carrier. And one big issue we had against the Browns that we just need to fix against the Bengals is missed tackles. So we missed a lot of tackles on guys like Chubb and Hunt against the Browns. Cannot let that continue. I assume that that's going to be a big focus this week for the Jets in practice. The Bengals defense, when we look at the other side of the ball, is up and down. They rank 12th against the run and 14th against the pass. So they are sort of towards the top end of the league, but not quite at the top, a little bit more in the middle of the pack. When they played the Cowboys, Cooper Rush was the quarterback for the Cowboys. He's filling in for Dak Prescott, and he beat them up for most of that game. He ended up in the box score having 235 yards and a touchdown against them. So nothing crazy, but he was able to move the ball against that defense for a lot of that game. But, and this is something in doing some research of the Bengals the last couple games, I'm able to see they do make really good halftime adjustments. So the Jets may end up having a better first half than they do, but we can't get lazy. We have to make sure that we play full game of football against the Bengals. They're a very good second half team. and they can do damage, and they have done damage the last couple games to almost make these comebacks and get back in these games. So have to make sure we don't let them do that. We keep the momentum in the second half if they struggle in the first half. As far as pass rushers, Sam Hubbard is the one to look out for on the Bengals. The Jets will have to make sure we focus on containing him. He had the only sack of the game for the Bengals against the Cowboys last week. So he'll have to be a key for our offensive line to make sure we're paying attention to. If we can do, potentially what we did against Myles Garrett, where we're putting some doubles on him, we're making sure that he's not beating us. I think if you give Joe Flacco that time, like we mentioned earlier, he has a really, really strong arm, and he's very accurate. And he had a lot of really awesome throws, and we saw that he still has it. So let's make sure we hold their pass rushers in check so that Joe has enough time to get the ball to playmakers like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. Him having enough time last week is how we ended up competing towards the end there. So what are our keys to success? So going into this game, obviously we're coming off a high. It's really awesome as fans. I'm absolutely hyped up. I feel like a different energy going into this after getting a win. Like I said, the biggest key for me is play 4 quarters of competitive football. When you compete to the end, you have a chance to win. Like we saw against the Browns, there were ups and downs in that game, but because we were competing and putting a competitive product out there till the final whistle, we had a chance, and that's all you need sometimes is a chance. So the Bengals have been heating up later in the game, so that's why I think the Jets just need to finish strong. If we can take the lead early, hold on to it, and finish strong, I think we'll do okay against the squad that's kind of trying to find their identity this year in the Bengals. I think with the struggling O-line with the Bengals right now, we need to draw up some unique blitzes to try and take advantage of some of those communication breakdowns that they might be experiencing as they try to gel. So I think that's an opportunity for us, is to try and get pressure early on Burrow, force him to make some mistakes, and get rid of the ball a little bit quicker than he'd like to. Like I mentioned earlier, feed the beast, man. Breece Hall is a beast, and I love Mike Carter, and he also needs to get more touches. But Breece Hall is another breed of player, man. He had 7 yards per carry last week against the Browns when he did touch the rock. It's time to feed him. Let's give him the ball more and more and more. He wants to eat. My next key is don't hesitate to keep over-targeting Garrett Wilson. He can handle it. He is consistently open. I saw some jokes today that, like, wherever Garrett Wilson is in the world right now, I know he's open. I mean, that guy gets open, man. So, what it's going to do for this Jets offense, it's going to give them someone who's reliable on third down in the red zone. And it's also going to allow guys like Elijah Moore to have some pressure taken off them and get freed up to make plays. We saw this for the Dolphins. This is how they've been doing really well right now is because Tyreek Hill is on that roster. Jalen Waddle has just been dominating for them the last couple weeks, as he's not the focus of the defense. It's Tyreek Hill. Then Waddle starts dominating, and suddenly Tyreek Hill is no longer the focus, and he makes plays. That's how the Dolphins ended up, coming back to win this past week, is sort of mixing it up between those two guys. I think the Jets have 2 really talented wide receivers in Wilson and Moore, and they can do a similar type of approach where they pepper one guy long enough where the defense loses a little focus on the other guy, and then we can start to switch it up. So I see that as a key for success for us. And then I think as you get into like the matchups for us, I think, in previous years, a guy like Jamar Chase, and he still does, but in previous years, I'd be a little bit more afraid of a guy like him. But Sauce, man, we drafted Sauce for these types of matchups. DJ Reed also has been playing really well. Whether you have Sauce or DJ Reed on Jamar Chase, I think we got to be a little bit more involved in press man. We're playing a little too much soft zone or soft man. It's really not allowing these guys to use some of their skill sets, their physical football, to stop a guy who's an elite wide receiver like a Jamar Chase. So I think we got to disrupt Chase's routes early, get him frustrated, and then hopefully put pressure on Burrow so that, when he targets Jamar Chase, it's earlier than he wants to and allows us to maybe get a turnover. So I think lean on your guys, lean on your playmakers like Sauce, like DJ Reed. DJ Reed, by the way, becoming one of our favorite players. That guy's just awesome. Love to see him ball, and excited to watch him again this week. My score prediction for this game is 27-24, and because we won last week, I'm giving this one to the Jets too. 27-24 Jets. People laughed at it when I said it about the Browns game. I think I said 24-17 Jets, and they were saying, there's just no world where the Jets win this game, and they did. So I'm sticking with confidence this week. I'm going 27-24 Jets. I think they can get it done. Just keep gelling, man. Keep putting the pieces together. You see the fan base and what it can be like when this team wins football games and how exciting it is in the city and in New Jersey and all these different areas that are rooting for this team. It's a special thing. And I think that's why fans stick around. That's why fans are still here after years and decades of just up and downs, and mostly downs, if we're being honest, for this franchise. We are here still for a reason, because of the feelings we get when this team does what we just hope and hope and hope they do, and win football games and compete to the end and have a real chance. So I'm excited to watch this game. It's a different feeling in Jets Nation. Get excited, get pumped. Rob Saleh is that guy right now, and I think we're all on board right now. Let's keep it up. Let's get this W. Go Jets. Jet up. All gas, no break. And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.